Might have been set to recording. I'd have to mute yourself. Are we ready? Excellent. Let's get me not echoing, though, please. Let's- Ken, are you on your laptop? I still hear Doug, will you wave if you can hear me?
Clear.
Now.
Sure. If you could try muting your microphone. I know, well, he can take it off when he speaks. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, let's see. That has seemed to help. So sounds like we have feedback of whoever's speaking in the room when those of you who are participating online are unmuted. So we'll just have to be cautious and deal with it. But this way we can get moving. So, Jonica, if you're okay with no further ado, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Yes. Great. Thank you very much. I'm Ashley McLeod, and I'm very pleased to sit here next to Chris. Will, thank you for your service for a couple of years, and so happy to go and share and just facilitate the conversation for VAUDA today. Want to take an opportunity to go around the room. We have a new VAUDA member, and that is Doug Faulkner, who is participating virtually from us. So what we just wanted to do was give a chance. We're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then Doug will give you a minute to go and introduce yourself. Okay. So can we go ahead and start with you, Will?
I'm Will Fadue, Senior Vice President of the Virginia Maritime Association.
Hi, I'm Brian Stevens with the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Ashley.
Hi there, Chris Gullickson, Port of Virginia.
Eileen Wool, formerly with the Sierra Club Virginia chapter.
Kathy Owens with Beach Development Group and Boeing.
John Larson, Director of Public Policy and Economic Development at Dominion Energy, Virginia.
Glenn Davis, Director of the Virginia Department of Energy.
Jonica Ratti, Research Analyst at the Virginia Department of Energy.
And Ken German, also Virginia Department of Energy.
So you want to introduce yourself?
Doug Faulkner, up here in drought-prone Arlington, Virginia. I've been in and out of renewable energy and energy efficiency for over 30 years. I was on VAUDA a while ago. Bob McDonald put me on. So I'm happy to be joining you all. Thank you.
Joe, did you want to unmute and introduce yourself? Okay, well, that's Joe. And Joe has been on VALDA for a couple of years now too as well. Ken, you want to say hello? You want to introduce yourself?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, my bad. Okay, thank you, Doug. We're thrilled to have you on board. He has tons of experience in the energy sector. I mean, he and I've had a chance to have a one-on-one phone call, and so I encourage all my colleagues on VALDA to go and take the time to get to know Doug and introduce him to what we're doing. So you guys had emailed to you. In addition, Chris thoughtfully went and printed out everything for you, draft minutes from the June 5th meeting. If you all have had a chance to look through them for the VALDA members and can, if there's any corrections that need to be made or a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Doug and Joe, if you can do in reactions, a thumbs up at least for us, or unmute and say aye. Okay, got a thumbs up from Joe and thumbs up from Doug. There we go. All right. Actually, Doug probably should abstain since he wasn't there.
That's correct. I abstain.
Good point. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. What I want to do just real quickly is I'm going to move a few things around. We're going to talk about the annual report and that, but as a courtesy for John and Glenn, I'd like to go and move them up in the agenda as far so that if I know one of them at least has a meeting they need to get to. So we'll go ahead and start real quickly with Director Davis. You want to go ahead and give us a quick 15 minutes or less of what's going on with the administration, Department of Energy. And I think a lot of us are interested in just with what's been happening from both of you, quite frankly, and how that impacts what VALDA is doing, our purpose, and how we can help you move forward with offshore wind for the state of Virginia.
Sure. No, appreciate it. We've been moving forward on the governor's all the above, all American energy plan. It's everything from wind, solar, gas, nuclear. Y'all have probably already seen the fire alarms that PJM has kind of put out there in conjunction with Dominion's IRP. We're looking at a 6.5% year-over-year growth in energy demand for the Commonwealth of Virginia as we look forward. Compare that to back 1 to 2% year over year back in 2020. So we're making the necessary adjustments. When we look forward, we're looking at hopefully a lot of new gas developments. Dominion has some great stuff going on, and obviously SMRs. We're moving forward hopefully with well, I say we, I like to take somewhat ownership of it, but Dominion's SMR over at North Anna, and look forward to things moving forward there. And then also AEP out in Lynchburg has announced their SMR, and they're moving forward on doing a down selective technology out there as well. So we're very excited about that. The governor is very excited also about where our CVAL project's been. It basically is the only project in the country, to my recollection, that is on time and on budget, with the exception of two things that Dominion can't control. They can't control the tariff, and they can't control PJM's interconnection. Other than that, we're very excited about where that is along the pathway as well. As we look out further, there's been some conversations, good conversations, about changes to the Virginia Clean Economy Act, realizing that facts have changed and situations have changed since 2020. There's a lot of conversation on both sides of the political aisle on what needs to happen to make sure that our lights stay on in the Commonwealth of Virginia as we move forward, basically giving more flexibility to entities like Dominion and AEP to continue growing natural gas and potentially taking off of some of the non-required expenses that are being put on the ratepayers as well. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview. Happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Okay, any questions for Glenn?
Yeah. What have we communicated to the White House about the CVAL project and not having it canceled, especially with District 2, congressional district being a hotbed for the election?
Sure. So I was with Jen Kiggins last week. I know she's been talking to them, having communications quite often, talking to the Congresswoman, and that's my knowledge. I would imagine the governor maybe. I just don't have any insight into those conversations, but I do know that at least through a Congresswoman, she's having significant conversations.
I'll feel comfortable to go ahead and comment because I was at the same meeting with Glenn and John actually, and Congresswoman Kiggins, and it was hosted by, and in attendance here is Thomas Turner with the Conservative Energy Network. And so he hosted that event. And for disclosure, I sit on that advisory board. And so or Congresswoman Kiggins' emphasis is on the fact with DOD and the energy needs that way. So she talked a lot about Oceana and all the different installations and the needs here. So I think that that was one of the big, just the energy shortage, Navy installation, prioritizing, I'm reading through my notes here, the fact that radars have to operate on generators and just the deficiencies there at the military bases. So I think that is one of the emphasis that she has specifically towards the need for additional energy. And my interpretation, and see if Glenn and John are in agreement with me, is she's still very much in favor of all of the above, and offshore wind being included as one of those, and recognizing our maritime commerce industry here is still very much can provide what we need, and it's a diversification for our economy locally. So so I think, did I sum that up relatively okay, John and Glenn? You comfortable with that?
I think you hit the mark.
Okay, good. And so with any other questions for Director Davis? The ones, and we had some on that I emailed to you too ahead of time. And one of those was, I think some of them were kind of more geared towards Mr. Larson. So why don't we do this? Why don't I go ahead and let John give his report specifically, and then we can go into all of those questions so they can piggyback off of. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
that
Thank you.
works. You want to share the, I threw a couple of slides together since we've had some newer photos. Many of you have, I think I've talked about it several times, even as a decade. But anyhow, we are, as Director Davis said, moving along on schedule, and very pleased with the progress that we've had to date. The two turbines out there continue to perform well, and we continue to learn a tremendous amount about just O&M and procedures and dealing with tropical storms and those types of things. And of note, of the last storm that came past, we only had like 70-mile-an-hour winds out there. So not near as high as people had anticipated. We did see some pretty heavy sea action, pretty heavy seas out there. But no impact, and we have these heavily instrumented, no issues on the strain gauges, those types of things. So we're seeing exactly what we want to see, and that's the good performance and staying within the design envelope. If we go to the next slide. Doesn't want to, oh, there we go. Oh, it's just lagging. So we have 155 monopiles in, 156 going in today, so roughly 88% of the monopiles. And that is the foundation is two parts, the monopile and that transition piece. So we're very pleased to have that going on. Right now, the last 8 monopiles are in transit, got slowed up last week because of the storms going across the North Atlantic. They should be in here mid-month, actually roughly 2 weeks from now. They should be in. Then we'll have all the monopiles, and we're just working to get those closed out and installed before we end the piling season. And things are going well. We also took the time this year to get all the foundations in for the other 2 substations. So each substation has 4 pin piles. One obviously is already set, and the other 2 are just awaiting for them arrival. And the second substation should be here by the end of this month. Next slide. Yep. And these are those transition pieces I talked about. So if you've been out lately or haven't been, that's the first transition piece being installed. And it takes about a full day to do that by the time you set it, bolt it on, and then grout it in place. So that's about a day-long operation per transition piece. We can put those on any time of year. The only thing we can't do is install foundations during the migratory season. outside of the during the migratory season and only during our piling season. So that's why it's so important for us. Our plan is to finish those monopile installations and then get right back to setting TPs. And Charybdis should be steaming up here later today or tomorrow. It should be leaving Brownsville. So good news on that. So we're very pleased. That was the second sea trials, and the Coast Guard's approved it to move forward. A couple of week cruise, assuming none of these storms blow up and slow us down. But think about it, it's a flat barge, so it's not going to be the most stealthy thing to be plowing through the ocean. Anyhow, we do have 59 of those in, and as you've driven past PMT, you've seen them. There's some more that are fabricated in Europe that'll be coming over here soon. One thing I will mention, tariffs are going to come up probably as a question. We do not pay tariffs on anything we have already received. It's only paying tariffs on what would come in after they were put into place. So there's no clawback, if you will, on that. So we have estimated, and Bob Blue talked about this on the earnings call, that it could be up to $500 million of that cost that was above, which Director Davis mentioned. But, we're very carefully managing and tracking that as we go ahead and keeping everyone apprised of what's going on. So we do have those last 8 monopiles, and then, of course, most of the turbines. If we go to the next slide, this is, the substations. As I said, we'll have another one. If we can set that when it's coming straight across, we'll just set it right off the vessel.
Okay.
When it's coming across. Obviously, that only happens if it's pretty much a dead calm day, right? I mean, we're not going to be making a 4,000-ton lift if we have any meaningful sea state. So it will come back into PMT just like that. Bottom left photo is when the first substation and jacket foundation. You can see they're different because of the load that is there with the size of those substations. But again, one of them planned here for September, and then another one in late November to arrive for installation. Next. And then this is Portsmouth Marine Terminal. Actually, there's another tower erected today I saw, and one is halfway built. As I drove past, I came in that way just to take a quick bird's eye view. But things are going really well. We've got obviously the nacelles down on the bottom. The blades are lined up. You can see we use the cargo containers as a barrier to keep people from getting near the blades or driving up in there to cause any damage. But they're lined up and stacked up, and we're looking forward to getting Charybdis up here so that we can get our first turbines installed. We'll still be able to send power back to the grid in January. So very excited about that. It'll be the first electrons since we do have the sequential commissioning worked out.
How many do you think you'll have actually working as of January?
Yeah, it takes a day and a half, 2 days to do each turbine, and it's going to depend on what the weather's
Weather
like,
and everything
right?
else, yeah.
And that's the hard thing to make a call on is what's the weather going to be like here is, we'll hit, while we're at midpoint of hurricane season, the next 30 days are typically the heaviest periods.
Mm-hmm.
We have to see how getting up here and getting started goes.
Excellent.
And next. Put a stall in the transition. Cables. So, it's great to have that substation in. It's being commissioned right now. We have 100% of our deep water export cables. So what does that mean? 0 to 12 miles out is shallow water, and we're called deep water 12 miles out to the substations. So all the deep water's in just shy of half of shallow water. It takes about a month to go from the beach all the way out to that 12-mile point. Cables coming in. It does take 2 cables to make each run in. We've got roughly 10% of that inter-array cable. Remember, that's the cable that connects turbine to turbine to turbine to substation, usually in a daisy chain of 5 or 6 turbines. That's a lot more work if you think about it. I have to get up where they can terminate inside of the transition piece, come down, go around, go up, and just keep going. So that's a little bit more activity, a little slower process than just rest of the cables. But we'll continue to work again. Again, all of that's driven by, what's the weather doing as we're out there operating. But things are going really well with that. Onshore, I took my old onshore slide out just for brevity today. All the overhead work is done. The underground work is all done except right there by Naval Air Station Oceana. That should get finished up here by the end of this year. And we'll finish those shallow water pools and get all of those terminated through the joint transition base. So all overhead work done. We're cleaning up those right-of-ways and doing the restorations and right there outside of the base. Next slide. I thought that was it. So, I'll just go ahead and one of the questions that you sent. So people keep saying, well, what about these grants? Well, Dominion Energy has no grants, right? There were some grants with Port of Virginia. That's been long done and gone as far as that goes. And then the other grants really associated with this were with Fairwinds Landing. So I can't really speak to grants per se since we don't have any, but those would be the appropriate parties to talk to.
I was going to ask what the governor's office has done, if anything, about communicating that with the White House.
Yeah, so I mean, this came out on Friday, and I haven't talked to the governor since probably Friday morning. So I'd have to find out. He's been traveling, I've been traveling. So
We've already worked with our CODEL over the weekend, but just trying to see, the help from the governor's office so that we don't lose that, because those grants were key over the years to drive this supply chain buildup. So, I mean, knowing that PMT is a different story because it's pretty much allocated, spent, done, but Fairwind's a completely different story as well.
And we're continuing to move forward and focus on the project. If you look at the president's comments, he stated that companies that were doing well with their projects that were far along, they're going to take hard reviews. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but we'll continue to move forward with the project until we would be told not to if that were to occur. So, nothing's changing for us right now.
One of the other questions, was there any more from either one? Okay, go ahead, Brian.
It's probably more of a Chamber of Commerce question than a valid question. How many people are employed right now?
Oh my gosh. I'll give a very specific example on Virginia Beach and then talk broader. I just pulled some numbers for them they ask about. So just in Virginia Beach, there are about 73 companies that have had contracts with our partners or either us, right? On the project, about 500 people have been employed by those companies working on the scope of the work with the reports we get, our tier ones and tier twos. Earlier this year, I had similar numbers from Norfolk, except Norfolk's dollar value is higher, right? Just because of the maritime. What I really like about this is from a regional perspective, I've seen Norfolk leverage its maritime experience and capabilities, and then kind of thinking, not that Norfolk doesn't have tech companies, but Virginia Beach is much more tech company service oriented. That's where they focus their economic development activities. And it's really worked well together as a regional approach between working with the chambers and the alliance and each city's economic development teams. It's been really successful. I will say that we were probably this close to landing another large manufacturer here, and just with some of the changes in policy, they made the election to hold off for right now. But they had pretty much, selected the Hampton Roads region as a place, OEM manufacturing facility. So, we'll see where things go in the future, and hopefully folks remember the good reception they had here and how the Commonwealth. Overall, there's been around 1,000 Virginians work on the project. The bulk of them which is 800 plus have been in the Hampton Roads region. Out on the water, we can have up to 700 people on a single day. Then you're going to have anywhere from 200. And that's not counting all the indirects that you may have as well.
I think the economic impact.
Hey, for a project of this size that virtually all the major equipment sourced in Europe, to think we've had 3 billion, 30%. Be amazing in the US with the bulk of that being in Virginia. And we've really worked with our partners. Some of you have come to events that we've had where we have those vendors here working with our manufacturers and service providers. We continue to do that. And I think that's one of the things that I am trying to make sure we get enough bandwidth and coverage of. We did events earlier this year. We moved into contracting for the operation and maintenance phase. And through this year, there'll be 75 plus contracts issued for maintenance and service contracts. Some of those will be from us and some will be from partners that we have to provide long-term support on SIMCO for the substations and working with. We're going to be here and have those contracts. That'll keep going on for 30 plus years.
One of the questions that to add on to the workforce one was skill sets that maybe we're lacking here that we've had to bring in. Has there been, how are we doing there?
We are not finding a gaping hole. And I think that's one of the things when we really looked at the education system here in the Commonwealth, whether private or public, when we looked at the unions, we've been able to get the workforce that we needed. The programs were already there. There's not a whole lot of new skill sets except maybe an offshore wind technician, which that's really just somebody that understands mechanics, electrical, and IT, right? I mean, the best people we find that are for that, believe it or not, we love to find people that grew up in a farm background because guess what? They can work with their hands and they'll problem solve and fix it. And they tend to work well as a team together. And we've had great results with that. Other one is cell phone technicians, cell phone tower technicians.
Oh, sure.
Working at height,
already climbing.
think about it. Same thing. Put together things, electrically connect them, and the IT piece of it. So they fit. So we've been really pleased kind of on all the aspects. We're not sitting here saying, oh, we've got a burning platform for this type of worker or that type of worker. Support and their team and the support there has been great. We've safely, look at the massive pieces of equipment we've safely unloaded with no damage and then load them back up to go out and on schedule. I mean, it works really well.
Any other questions before I bring up, Eileen?
Yeah, with this 2,600 megawatts coming online by the end of 2026, are there any issues or problems that you're anticipating getting that on the grid, the PJM grid?
Oh, no. As I was saying, we've got virtually all the onshore done. We'll get this offshore export cable and the inter-array cables finished. You know, the network upgrades are being performed, so we'll be able to get that power delivered to our customers. And I do like the fact that we were able to work on the sequential commissioning versus having to wait until the end of all 2,600 megawatts. But our focus, job one right now, is literally getting this project construction completed and ramping up for the operations. That's job one right now for Dominion Energy Virginia.
The timeline for south and east still roughly on, post 2030?
Yes, yeah. So our previous IRP called for south to be around 2034 and east to be 2039. I'm on our IRP Executive Review Committee, and we have a meeting in a couple of weeks that will show us how new things stacked up and if there's any movement. Things like this typically in that kind of long-term plan, the way the model operates, it might move it up or back a year. It's not like it's gonna totally disappear unless there was some cost thing that went through the roof. But we publicly said, if you think about how far out those are, we don't really have capital allocated to that in our 5-year plan right now, if that makes sense, right? I mean, you wouldn't be throwing capital at that for something that's 2030.
Go ahead, follow up is fine.
With the Mid-Atlantic lease that you all have, do you have to submit to BOEM a SAP, site assessment plan? Is that?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, we'll have to go through and submit all the required, just like we did for CVAL and Avangrid had done for South. And, we'll have to do any updates we do with the COP, those types of things.
With the CVAL COP, the original CVAL COP.
No.
That's already been approved. I'm sorry. What am I
Yeah.
talking about?
Approved,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would just be for South, and then,
Okay.
we're a ways off for doing a COP for
Yeah.
East.
No, with the SAP, was that like a year after having bought it? You have to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have to submit our plan for what we would be doing.
Don't hold your breath on that one, right?
Yeah,
There's time. Yeah. So I'm thinking
there's
former- yeah,
timelines, but,
Yeah.
it's a plan for what your plan is going to be, right? It's your plan for how you will do your assessments. It's not like, here's a project plan and how we're going to build it and do all that kind of stuff.
It was almost 3 years for other from the time of leasing to actually submitting a SAP that I that's what I'm remembering from my past experience for that to accomplish. And I think, so I guess one of the things too, and this, Glenn, I know Will already kind of asked this, but in regard to messaging well, actually, I'm going to back up to Congresswoman Kiggins mentioned that one of the positives, I can't remember which, if it was in the big beautiful bill or where it was, but in regard to just the decrease in like the NEPA process and all that, I would assume that's not just impacting offshore wind, that's impacting all of our energy. So can you comment to either one of you comment on the benefits of that?
I mean, it is going to be huge. I mean, John can probably speak to it more specifically, but no, you're right. It's going to impact. I mean, in the whole, I mean, there's so much going on right now in DC with getting rid of some of the regulations, even at the NRC level, where they're starting to fast track opportunities for SMRs and the permitting process there. Same thing now with natural gas. I mean, we're talking to companies that would never build a pipeline, 3 years ago, and now they're ready and they're looking for opportunities to build. So from a regulatory aspect, a lot of things are loosening up a little bit. NEPA is a big one. John, I don't know if you have specifics, but I mean, it's huge, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the CERC project, and I mean, there's got to have a dispatchable asset. Welcome a more. And I think the other thing that she mentioned is how you go through the appellate process. If you do, trying to streamline that so that it gets to higher levels and a more fast. I got something out for decades trying to get through.
For sure.
And that's the big thing, even if you get regulatory review, if you've got this, long period.
Well, and also this will drive the cost down. I mean, the costs for some of these are in the millions of dollars. So that would help overall, ultimately to the ratepayer. Glenn, you might be able to mention this too, because I know that while we're here for offshore wind specifically, in regard to just the processes or the concerns statewide in regard to our need for energy source, where are we with that? And because I know it's going to take a while to go and get the SMRs on track and that. So how do we fill the gaps, and where are we feeling that way?
We're in trouble. I mean, John said it. I mean, we can build solar, we can build wind, but you have to have the dispatchable resource. Oh, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can have solar, we can have wind, but ultimately you have to have the dispatchable resource. I mean, unless someone can tell me what the weather is going to be like on January 15th of 2027, we better have nuclear or gas. And so that's what we're looking at is governor really is in all the above. Geothermal, I mean, there's an emphasis there, and we're going to try to do what we can do there. But the big push is going to be gas. And can we get gas going quick enough to start, providing some of the energy supply that are necessary to keep the economic growth that we're seeing. Back in 2020, we were having almost zero economic growth. I mean, this just wasn't an issue back then when they modeled this whole thing. Now, up to recently, we were the best state in the nation for business. I think we still are. We can talk about how CNBC kind of played the waiting game. We had over $103 billion of investments in new capex in the last 3 years. So there's just skyrocketing energy demands. Some people look at it through data centers. That is a huge piece of the equation, but we know that we're onshoring advanced manufacturing again. Chip manufacturing, indoor agriculture takes a lot of energy. I never realized how much energy indoor agriculture takes. So as we start to grow all these industries, we have to have the energy demand. So a large focus is how do we incent new opportunities, whether it be through our utilities or our gas producers to grow there, and also working with our utilities and PJM, trying to get some of this online quicker. PJM obviously is kind of a hold up in the whole process queue of how, it's great to build it, but if you can't get it online for 7 years, you got a problem.
Right.
So trying to fast track some of that through PJM, and some of the FERC processes that have been approved help that quite a bit. I think you had 2 projects recently, didn't you? Through was it the IRR with FERC, Chesterfield 1? Is it IRR? RR?
Open season?
No. The advanced PJM. You got to bypass some of the So we're getting some changes in PJM.
So we had one question that came asking about, and I feel like this is off off a long way, but the question was about the opportunity. Do we have a potential future for floating wind? I know we've talked about that in the past, but I mean, just from both of you as professionally, where you see things. Glenn, I know your answer.
Okay. So here's what's really interesting. So there was a grant a long time ago for innovation in wind. And so where were they out of? I want to say Japan. We'd start talking to a company in Japan. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. But they had a entity that floated. It did wind, solar, and tidal. And so we actually were talking to Dominion a little bit. We're a little different on the East Coast than they are on the West Coast. The entity chose that they wanted to go test it out on the West Coast, not the East Coast. But who knows? I mean, technology is going to be changing dramatically over the next couple of decades. So if you can have something that pulls all three, but John's probably got more specifics, but.
Yeah, I would say in the near distant future, maybe is a way to say it. When you look at kind of the Virginia Capes, we can pretty much build out pretty close to the edge of the shelf and stay fixed bottom.
Okay.
And we may have to go to some jacket foundations further out just because of the deeper water and the loads. And the favorability from a cost perspective of that is pretty phenomenal. The other thing is, if you're going to go floating, you're going to be off the shelf. So then I got to figure out, how do I do HVDC? And I'm probably going to have a submersible version of that, which I haven't really seen one of those yet. I know there's talk, and they say there's some that are designed. And then I got to bring that power an awful long way to get to shore. And if you think about Virginia, we really don't have but about 15 or so miles of coastline to land on, and we don't serve our friends just across the Bay Bridge Tunnel, right? We don't have load there. We don't serve those customers, and so when you start also thinking about the feasibility of where would you bring that ashore here, given certain other restrictions that exist in this geography, it makes it really tough to see how much additional you can bring ashore on top of it. So you look at, is floating technology really proven? How do I deal with the electrical interconnections? And then, of course, there could be, where do you do landing? And then certainly when you start thinking about how do we work with commercial shipping out there and Department of Defense, it opens up a whole different.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because we've had those discussions years ago. That's a non-starter for the Navy due to the amount of submarine training and everything we do here, and all those anchor chains. And this area will not risk, Virginia will not risk losing the DoD dollars and training and families for floating offshore wind. It's just not happening.
Let me give my colleagues on the online. Doug, do you have any questions you would like to ask? If you do, unmute and we'll let you ask those.
Well, Mr. Davis talked about technology changing fast, and I think that's very critical to understand that that is the case. And so I hope we can keep an open mind on this committee about all kinds of wind. That's all. No extra questions.
All right, Kathy.
Along the lines of, I don't think
Oh, wait, let me, you know what, Joe, do you have a question?
No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay, we'll go ahead and let you mute yourself because we get feedback if people online are unmuted. Perfect, thanks. Okay, Ms. Owens.
Thank you. So along the lines of the streamlining regulations, one of our missions is to identify existing regulatory or administrative barriers to the development of offshore wind energy. How would you see VALDA's input to the department and the General Assembly with regard to that?
So most of the regulations regarding offshore wind really are federal. They're all coastal waters. So when it comes to Virginia in the General Assembly, it can only do things like, well, what was done, back in, I think it was 2020 when they put wind in the public interest, right? Those are things that the General Assembly can get involved in on how you facilitate things happening. But regulatory wise, it's at the federal level.
Flat answer there. Okay. Any follow-up from you, Kathy? Ms. Owens and I talked about this, and so help me remember, Kathy. I was trying to pull this up on my computer because I thought I meant to have it up. Delegate Figgins put forth House Bill 1616, and it did go forward, and then the governor vetoed it. It had to do with workforce training as well as actually establishing a Department of Offshore Wind. But let's focus on the workforce part of it. In that bill, they cited a $16 million grant, and I'm curious where that is and what has gone to. And as far as
16 million.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's TSED. Though it's more than 16. I want to say TSED was, I got to pull numbers up on TSED.
Yeah, but I can't use my computer unless it's plugged in.
Was somewhere in the 16 million plus or minus range.
Yeah, it could be that one. I mean, so here's what we look at the Department of Energy. We're excited about workforce in general. And John was talking this before the meeting started, right? I mean, if you're a welder, you're a welder. You can weld on nuclear, you can weld on gas, you can weld on offshore wind, right? So we've looked at workforce as kind of a holistic solution. We want to grow the workforce in the skilled trades because it's going to help any entity out there in any medium of energy. The one grant we went after, and it still is under consideration today, is TSED. That grant was put out there specifically for offshore wind workforce. We tied it had to be tied to an underserved community near an offshore wind project. We call it Dominion, and we're tying it to SeaTac. You're familiar with Virginia Beach very much with the SeaTac community. So it's tied in with there, and it's still under consideration. Once again, though, it may be for offshore wind, but the fact of the matter is, if you're a welder, you're a welder, and you can go work on the shipyards or on offshore wind or gas or what have you. So we look at more of a holistic scenario when it comes to our workforce grants.
Yeah, and Glenn, this is Vince Maiden, Director of the State Energy Office. I will note that we did broaden that TSED one to be a lot of other workforce for the area. It just happens to be tied. We were eligible because of the offshore wind project. So we have offshore wind, but it's a more broad workforce grant. So if we do get it, that we've got a great plan to use that to bolster the workforce and stimulate economic development in the area.
Well, the fiscal analysis said it was actually awarded. So it said Energy received a $16 million grant from the U.S. Department of Energy in 2024 to support workforce training programs related to ongoing offshore wind development in the Hampton Roads region.
That's TSED. Vince, do you know of another one besides TSED?
Yeah, our TSED grant was technically awarded, but it was conditionally awarded, and it's under review by the Department of Energy.
Okay.
Federal.
The Federal Department
Federal
of Energy, yes,
Department of
yes.
Energy, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the governor vetoed. I mean, we knew it was coming. We applied for it. We knew it was coming. We already knew what we wanted to do with it, so we didn't need legislation telling us what to do with it. We already had it kind of earmarked and done.
Forgive me, you're acronyming it. So can you tell me what it actually
He
stands?
said, Vince,
Yeah, the TSET transmission, siting, and economic development is what it's focused
Okay.
on. So it didn't
Thanks.
have to be tied to particular offshore wind. It was really just to benefit the communities.
Awesome.
Yeah, and one of the things in working with the delegate was we have a huge issue with young men and women, whether it's offshore wind or wherever, or the soft skills, right? How to show up in an interview, don't dress up wearing a ratty hoodie with the hood pulled up and wearing your holy jeans for an interview, because guess what? You're probably not going to get hired. And then just some of the basic skills and problem solving skills and communications. That was also part of what we had talked to the delegate about, making sure got covered. And as you work through this program, I think all of us are seeing that that's a challenge this day and age, especially for many of the workers that aren't, in a professional environment. It's becoming a growing challenge. Yes.
The
20% of our employees.
well, that's a good number to know. No, that actually comes up everywhere you go, whether it's a TCC or any workforce type group. And of course, the Workforce Council statewide is doing quite a bit to go and work on that as well. My son was telling me that his friends, age wise, Zoom interviews are actually making people stand up to see if they really got out of their pajama bottoms
Wearing
with the
their
rest of their
polka dot
suit.
underwear.
And I thought that was pretty smart, to be honest.
that'd be interesting.
Okay, I feel like, are there any additional questions? I feel like we can move on if we don't have any more questions for Director Davis or Mr. Larson. Anyone? Thank you guys very much. We have something, just an easy card for you, John. This will be the last time you are here, not retired.
Yes.
So thank you.
Well,
so
thank you very
for
much.
all
I
your
appreciate
service.
that. Yep. Been a great career here.
There you
And
go.
I get to come back as a consultant to Bill, so I can't
There
argue with
you
that.
go. Well, we look forward to not losing you completely, but we wish you well on your new adventures in
Thank you.
retired life.
Do I? Yeah, no. We're gonna fly fish, see grandchildren, and work
Yeah.
the Bill.
Yeah, John and I've had fun catching up about grandkids.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
great. It's
All
a
right,
good thing.
thanks. We'll see
Thank you
guys.
so much. All right. Okay, at this point, if we could go ahead, are you guys good with, let's go ahead and start looking through the annual report. The staff sent us a draft. And so Chris was good enough to go and print some copies out. And so hopefully everyone has had a chance to review it. And so I think what might be easiest is to just start at the beginning. And if we want to start, we'll just go page by page, and anything you would like to be edited page by page. Is that an okay way to do the process of going through? You like what that will? Okay. All right. So let's just go ahead on. I think we are fine with, just the table of contents will have to be shifted appropriately. So on page 1 with the introduction and the first 2 recommendations, anyone have any corrections or suggested edits to that page?
Yeah, my only thing was if we need to pull out references to Avangrid, if that's really not a thing, and if Kitty Hawk North is not a thing, or Kitty Hawk
Correct.
South. So just all those pulled out.
This is, I guess the wonky is it is a report at the time.
Yeah, but if we're making the report now,
Yeah, you're correct. Yep. And we refer to it like in recommendation 1, formerly Kitty Hawk North, just for
yeah, because the 2025 VALDA activities is the only part that is historical.
historical. Yep. Good point. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, and just to put it out there, I no longer work for Avangrid, but Kitty Hawk's Wind South still is a project. And just as a side note, the state of North Carolina, actually, there was an article and Duke is not looking to go and actually put offshore wind in their energy plan. So I don't know. I have no clue where that leaves Kitty Hawk South, but it it is potentially still wind energy, or it is a wind energy area that could still potentially go anywhere on the East Coast as far as that goes. So I'll leave it to you guys to help if we want to remove every reference to any other project besides a CVAL type project,
Well,
or
whatever's
just
whatever's
make generic in the language or any additional projects.
yeah, because whatever technically is correct, I don't care.
Okay.
But I inferred the same thing when
Yes.
when the state of North Carolina decided they're not pursuing that,
Yeah.
and I took that as
Yeah.
that's it. So
For North Carolina at least. Okay, so we'll go and update that part. That's easy. Okay, any other corrections on the first? So that's throughout. We'll just we'll go through that. We'll do a search that way. How about anything else on the first page? Kathy, Eileen, Doug or Joe, just put it in the chat that we need to call on you if you have comments on any of the annual report as well. Okay, page 2.
but the only comment I had was, is the Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina Smart Power Collaborative still a thing?
I was going to ask that too, and Ken has stepped out of the room.
Staff on the.
Yeah,
Ken-
Vince or
Vince
anyone,
or
can you help us with
Jonica,
that?
somebody.
We're talking about smart power and whether or not that is, I actually pulled that out to ask if that is, here's Ken.
Ken.
Yeah.
Ken, yeah, come on over. We were just asking about smart power and what that's in our report here and our plan. So the question becomes, is that actually active? Do we know when the last time they met?
It is active. They're getting ready to, there's been a lot of talk about submitting an official final report. And that was originally going to come out of NREL, and NREL is now rethinking that because of all the stuff going on in Washington. So
Okay.
that'll probably be released through the who's it now RDC will probably be releasing that.
Okay, so if they're still active planning having a meeting, we can just leave it as is.
Yes.
For this point. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Ken. That's right. I think now RDC is leaning towards eventually releasing it. There was talk of some state or something releasing it, but NREL will not. But yes, active.
They don't want to paint a target on themselves.
In the chat.
Doug wants.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, go ahead, Doug. Unmute yourself.
I'm not sure what page it's on, but I was kind of flipping back and forth with the annual report. But on the recommendations, I think one thing that we might want to put in there, it's kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is to, over the course of the next year, I assume that's what the recommendations are about, looking forward into the next year, is assess the impact of federal actions on offshore wind in Virginia, something to that effect. Because I think that's kind of there's a lot of stuff in the press right now and people are wondering about that.
Mhm.
And, is it a big deal? Is it a little deal? And I would recommend that we put something like that in the recommendations for the next year.
Doug, are you referring to the economic impact of the CVAL project?
I'm referring, well, on offshore wind in general, and if you want to get specific, it could be that, but I think it's a much bigger issue.
I'm trying to figure out if that fits into recommendation 4 or not. Continue to identify and resolve barriers, even if it's your own federal government.
Well, if,
Yeah.
but if the,
Insert it, because I think it's a valid point.
Mhm.
because that sentence is actually very specific. It says barriers to enable
Yeah.
power off takers. So it would be an additional something in there.
I think if we don't put something in, people will kind of scratch their heads and say, well, gosh, what are you really looking at the whole picture here? And I know it may be political, but it's also economic, and it does have impact, like we heard from somebody. It might have been Director Davis about the company that decided not to announce its upcoming build. So I think it's something that we, as a committee, we ought to take a look at. And
Put another statement,
is it
another
big? Is
sentence.
it small?
Okay. You go ahead and speak in the
Right.
microphone, Brian. I think
Yeah.
this is a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we could add it as another sentence under recommendation 4, just say something to the effect of additionally continue to evaluate the impact of federal policy on the continued development or whatever. Continue the sentence.
Yeah, that should be a yearly consideration of things that are coming down the pike. And, you know, if we do have that interaction with our electeds, to have that messaging that we agree on to put forward to them.
How about if it's additionally evaluate federal developments and legislation in impacts to current and future offshore wind projects? Everybody good with that? Keep it simple. Welcome to the team, Doug. Good suggestion.
I have another one.
Oh, goody. All right, go for it.
I only have two, but
Okay.
I somewhere in my I'm trying to toggle back and forth, and it's taxing my abilities here, but is to somehow work in the what's going on, as Director Davis, I think, again, was talking about the unbelievable escalating demand for electricity in the Commonwealth and the country. And it's a way of for us to talk about how offshore wind could help in what may be a crisis for the country in its energy situation. So somehow to look at, and I don't know how much we get into advocacy, but to promote the positive impact of offshore wind development in this whole all of the above strategy, if that's really true, it is going to take all of the above because we have an incredible energy deficit, electricity deficit building up, and it's just starting to percolate into people's minds. And I think what we're doing on this committee and in this industry could have an impact on it. So somehow, I'm not really sure if that's a new one or something.
It's come up in conversation before, Doug, and actually that was one of my questions and we didn't get to it. And Director Davis is still here too. But the question I had was, with VAUDA specifically, what messaging can we put out? And do we do that through the Department of Energy, or how do we put it out? And because we still are an all of the above option here.
Yeah, we 100% are. And this where it might be helpful, because one of the things in this, and technology is always growing, right? But and to Doug's point, we need all the above. We need as many electrons as we can get. But where does wind really start to make the difference? And the answer is, either how does wind become reliable, or how do we do something with it to make it reliable? So storage is something. I mean, so because like when you build out a grid, when Dominion builds out their grid, they don't build it out saying, okay, we have this much solar, this much wind, because they can't rely on it, right? Just like solar on your home, they can't rely on it. You may take it down one day, so they can't rely on it. So they build out dispatchable power. And what it used to be is you build enough gas and nuclear that if you have a shortfall, you just solve it with PJM. If the wind and solar is not there.
Right.
Well, PJM has now come out and said you can't expect to import the power you're importing today because it won't be there, to 35%, right?
And that's the state of Virginia imports about 35% of their energy from other sources outside of here.
Yes. So that's what we would do. So if there was a day where we didn't have the dispatchable power and wind wasn't blowing hard, we'd just say, okay, we will just import from PJM. But now PJM is not going to be the backstop in 4 years, right? So it's how do you make wind dependable? And that becomes the selling point, because that really is the question of where does it fit. And maybe the answer is storage in conjunction with it. Maybe it's technology coming around the corner, but that if I was looking at, how do you advocate for wind, it really is, how does it get to be as important as dispatchable power?
So I'm going to be the devil's advocate, I guess, here to your point. And that is just simply, I don't think anyone has ever, or well, not anyone, many of us have never thought it was going to end all be all to it, but it absolutely is an additional source. And so how do you put that positive message out there, that at a time that it does add to it, and we need all, that's the whole point of the governor's, all of the above.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's really like, what can we do as a committee, and what is the messaging we can do? Because we're here specific for offshore wind. So what can we do, and how, and do we have a method in order to do it? I've asked numerous times in these meetings, who is responsible to try to educate the people of Virginia and about offshore wind and understanding things where, is it NOAA's responsibility? Is it the federal government's responsibility? Is it, pick an association or those kind of things. I don't think it's just environmental groups. It's like at some point in time, if we see, even if it's never going to be as large a producer as others, but it still is that producer. So how do we identify what those messages should be? And I think that's where Doug's point is in potentially adding that in there. Anybody else can add, so I don't go too much on my fringe there.
One great place could be the last sentence of recommendation 1, where it states, in working towards meeting what the current wording is, the offshore wind goals of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, and instead work towards meeting the current all of the above strategy. All of the above includes offshore wind.
Well, they should both be referenced because they both exist.
Both, exactly. I was going to say the same thing.
Clean Economy Act is a thing.
Yes,
So
working towards meeting offshore wind goals of the Virginia Clean Economy and the current goals of the all of the above Commonwealth strategy.
Yes.
Does that work?
Well, because the reality is, the
Yeah.
political reality is, we need all of them because based on who's in office, energy projects change. Right now, SMRs, gas is popular. Who knows? Next year it could be back to renewable.
Offshore wind,
So we need to be developing all of it
Right.
because whoever's in office could be stunting 2 of the 4. And we need to
Exactly.
keep the other 2 going. all the
That's our
time.
strategy all the time. Keep it all going because all right. But I think we can add that. I think Kathy's point is valid. And so if we just put as well as the current of all the current all of the above Commonwealth strategy, we could say as defined in the energy plan. Isn't that 2022?
It's in the all the above, all
2020.
American all the above energy plan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That sounds like and number 1, I agree, is the right place to do that. Any other comments, Eileen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really going to be important, especially as you consider CVOW South, CVOW East, and building up all the momentum in the communities.
Yes, I
Because
agree
they're
completely.
not going away, and it's also important for supply chain. If we are just, set on this massive amount of offshore wind, Virginia Beach Economic Development had those at the IPF had those maps on their display showing all the different projects. If we could a marketing campaign or a public education campaign about, how much a percentage offshore wind of, our clean energy goals, how much offshore wind accomplish a lot with those 3 projects, so we can people
Focused on, not fixated, but
big long slug, but it takes time up, all that grassroots support and all that.
So I think though, I don't want us to like reinvent the wheel
for
of
sure.
doing some sort of big statewide economic study for data that already exists with a bunch of
No,
other
actually, I don't think
groups.
she's saying do the study. I think she's saying actually promote the information. I would like to next meeting, and this might bring this, is to ask Doug Smith to come in for our next meeting and talk to us about just such these things. And then that also, if it's okay with Director Davis, gives us time to actually, I'd like to visit more with the Department of Energy in regard to what they're doing and how we can simply promote, because unfortunately we don't have a budget. So it's us asking you guys to do it, but I don't know what your budget is and where that falls into place. And I know that their prioritization is different. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Will, but does that fit with what you were?
Yeah,
I
just
don't-
like I said, like all this stuff,
Yeah.
because we need to be very clear
Yeah.
with what VAUDA's role is
Yep.
and not get sucked down rabbit holes where
Exactly.
we
And what can we
just don't
actually
need to
accomplish
be.
something, right?
Doug,
Okay.
you have a comment? Doug?
Oh,
I see your
Doug.
hand raised.
Yes, I do. And I'm not sure if it's for Director Davis or anyone else, but it's a tricky situation, but I think there is a differentiation to be made between offshore wind and onshore wind. I think that question of reliability, which gets put out there in the press and in some political circles about wind, I don't think it applies as much to offshore wind as onshore wind. We have to be careful. We don't want to criticize another energy source, but I think it'd be important to talk about in whatever we say publicly and whatever we can say publicly
That's fair.
That's
And
more of a
Doug's
comment.
right.
I don't mean to put that in the recommendations, but it keeps coming back all the time. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind.
Doug's right. I mean, obviously speed does change even offshore,
Mhm.
but it's a big difference on onshore. I mean, onshore, it never dies offshore. It dies onshore. And so sometimes you see people looking at studies and they don't realize they're looking at a study that is onshore, just they think it's wind. Completely different situation.
I'm going to
Well, so
keep us
I
moving
think
forward because
that's really important to emphasize,
I agree.
Director Davis.
I'm going to keep us moving forward. If there's nothing on page 2, let's look at page 3. If there's any corrections, edits, or suggestions there, because I thought we'd get this done in an hour and we're not.
Update the year.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm asking, are we done? Can we go to page 3?
I would just like to hit up innovation. Doug
me where you're
mentioned it. There isn't.
Oh, okay.
So it's been mentioned, and I've been looking through. I thought that we included it in our objectives, and I don't see it. We included that. I thought we included that somewhere because innovation is important. In manufacturing, any of these companies that we want to attract here for offshore wind, we want to make sure we're including the innovation side of that they're innovating new materials, new concepts to make offshore wind less expensive. That's where I would put it, but it's innovation is not specifically called out. And I thought it was in our objectives. I thought that we had included that last year, but I'm looking through and I don't see it. So
am I being a little?
But I think that's where it should belong. That's where it should live in recommendation number 3.
So like just under where it says other areas adjacent to or important for wind research and innovation, is that too vague, or can you help me out where you think it would go? Innovation and research, colleges, not just colleges and university. They were doing the research.
I think it's inferred.
Yeah.
I mean, because the other thing is like, it goes back to, is VAUDA going to do that? No, it's not. I mean, there's all these
But it's
groups
actively solicited.
already doing it. I mean, and it's not like no one's soliciting it, right?
Right, exactly.
University's already working on it. You know, the offshore wind companies are working on it. We have the lease. My 2 cents.
Feel like that's, is everybody in agreement that is implied there, or do we want to actually put innovation in there? Make sure it's spelled out. Does research and development cover it?
Research and development and innovation opportunities.
Okay.
Really include that.
Adding that
Okay.
simple to the point.
It is, yeah.
Includes it.
It's only adding 3 words, so.
Yeah, I just remember last year.
I know.
We
glad
got getting
happied.
really crazy about adding 1 or 2 words.
Yes, and the
it
next
was-
thing, yeah, we've exploded. We don't need to glad happy it, right? Well, yeah. Okay. Got that one? Can we move on to page 3? Will we? Okay. Page 3.
2023 update. Top of the page to the right.
Oh, thank you. Put the 24.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts there? Moving on to page 4. Oh, there's in that, yeah, actively solicit research development opportunities. Want to be consistent, put innovation, or is research and development good enough there? Well, that's specific to the,
This was the
yeah,
past.
that was past, my bad. As a recap of each of our meetings, the September meeting minutes obviously need to be added in there now that Jonica, you can do that now that we've passed our minutes. Okay. So we're moved page 4 or 5. We seem to breeze through with no corrections that you've shouted out at me. And then the rest is our mission statement, our objectives. And I think that is pretty,
It'd be boilerplate.
the boilerplate, exactly. Couldn't think of the word. All right. And then we just need to update the authority members list. Any other corrections or suggestions to this? And we typically there's a cover letter that goes with it. But we've done this in September. This will go to the governor and everyone in November, though? Is that when it's actually, Ken, when do we deliver this?
October 15th.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So we'll do a cover letter. Is it appropriate for me to draft that or use the one that you guys did last year, quite frankly, just update it with that? And are you guys comfortable with that? I can circulate it to everybody and you can send individual comments, but I wasn't prepared I didn't think about having that cover letter done for today for review.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we discussed last year that needs to happen is, again, that VAUDA sends this
Yes.
to the General Assembly leadership directly and the appropriate committees as per statute.
So,
And I'm sorry, I'm going to back up to
sure.
the minutes of the meeting. So we discussed the changes to the code.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in the April 17th meeting. And I think it's all been agreed on. And so are there sponsors for that? Have we found sponsors?
Well, where that ended is we handed all that over to Department of Energy, and that's
Where it's at.
where it's at.
Okay, so I apologize for not asking for that earlier.
Yeah.
We were looking.
Yes. Yeah. If you want to go through this, we can have that conversation right after.
Yeah, finish this.
All right.
Okay.
And I'll have a comment later when we do that. Okay. All right. That sounds good. All right. All right. With, I'm just going to ask my fellow folks to go ahead and do I have a motion to go and approve this as the report going forward with the changes that we've stated during this meeting?
So moved.
First and second, and Chris and Will have, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a question. Put who it is now. Oh, that's a good point. We could list, maybe let's do them by year and no, serving, but, and we'll see who's on just as a quick update of that. So yes, Jonica, let's go ahead and leave Howard on there because he was part of it, but we'll note it somehow that he was, no longer resigned as of whatever date. That might be the easiest way to do it. And then adding in Joe's there now, and then we can add Doug is in there, but we'll just put a little retired date next to Howard. And then, and since we're submitting it under, and right now I'm the chair, we'll do that. And just a quick update, I did reach out again to the Commonwealth Secretary. They're just extremely behind on getting appointments through. So I don't have an answer to that. So happy to serve until I find out I can't. So yes, but Brian.
Remind me again who this goes to. What's the process?
Process for that.
So we talked about this last time.
Mhm.
I remember, but I don't remember.
Because we
So,
wanted clarity that it was actually getting there. So we've asked the staff to send it before, but go ahead.
right,
Will.
and I think that's where last year, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't get any clarity that it actually happened, that it just went to the Department of Energy and we don't know where it went. And
When it comes to us,
Mhm.
so prior to cut off last year, and I forgot when we changed it over. It comes to us, it goes up to the governor's office.
Mhm.
They would come back sometimes with suggestions.
Yep.
Then it would come down. If it needed to come back through here, it would come through here. And then at that point, it would go to chairman of committees or whoever's supposed to go to. It doesn't go to all members of the General Assembly.
Right.
Usually it's just chairman of committees, and that's where it goes. You can probably check with the chairman. Being a prior chairman, I can tell you I lost count how many of these things I got. But no, went there. What the policy is now, working with the OAG about a year ago, is it comes out of here. It goes directly from here to the entities that are designated in code. Once again, I think it's the chairman of the committees.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, great. And you'll just report back to us the date that everything was sent. You
Actually, it's
can-
going to go from you.
Oh, wow. Okay, gotcha. But I mean, yeah, okay. So then we'll report back with this. Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarification. I think Alfonso Lopez right now is the chair of the Energy Committee, if
Yes,
I
I
remember
believe so.
correctly. So, yes, sir.
So for our reference after submission, can we get a final copy?
Happy to do that. Excellent. Okay, so moving on with that, let's go ahead and did we take a vote? I don't remember.
We just-
All in favor?
Good
Yeah,
work.
okay, good. Thank you. Sorry.
No,
Next.
we actually didn't.
No, I don't think we did. We did first and second, and then we had a comment. And so all in favor of approving this draft as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? thumbs up from Joe. I got a visual thumbs up, Doug from as well. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm looking at our list here. Administrative items. I don't remember. Oh, I think that was for next part. We've got identifying any new policies and legislations. I know that this is when we should be working on it now. I already mentioned that Delegate Figgins mentioned he is going to be bringing 1616 back up again. That was the one that I know that from last year. Obviously, we have elections, so we don't know what's going to happen. So that always makes it tricky in regard to everybody getting their things filed. So my suggestion is that we keep an eye open. We ask the DOE, like Glenn and your team, if you can go and let us know when you see legislation coming that specifically is towards offshore wind, that you let us know so we can start watching it ourselves.
Early filing, I think, is November, somewhere November 9th, somewhere around there is early filing.
So hopefully, yeah. And so I'm going to suggest, and I'm jumping ahead, is that we have it before Thanksgiving, but after the election meeting, unless you want to do early December, but I'd rather do before Thanksgiving. That way we can kind of have our finger on the pulse then and start watching, because any of us that are chatting with folks, and we know something's coming, we just keep us all abreast when you hear that. But that's my suggestion in regard to identifying things. The only one I know, Will, you may know, or Brian may know more with what your team is doing in regard to anything, but have you heard anything? I mean, everybody's, yeah.
Not on this.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's in a just standstill, I think. Okay. Go ahead, Eileen.
Won't it be a legislative action to actually institute it?
Yes. And thank you for bringing that up. I suggest that we just hold till November to see in regard to
We're going to give an update.
Yeah.
We finished.
with the
Yeah,
code.
if you want to walk through them. I'd
Okay,
happy
go.
to do
Oh,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, you were going to give an update. There you go. Go ahead, Glenn. Thank
Oh,
you.
Okay, no, I mean, if you want to walk through, I
Please.
mean, I got a number of the code changes
Okay.
that y'all suggested, happy to walk through. Some of them were great suggestions. Some of them are already permissible. And so happy to kind of go through there.
Okay. And I
Um,
apologize. We didn't print those out for y'all. So my team doesn't have them. I happen to have my old printed copy. Jonica did ask you to do it, but let's just go through it the best we can. You can pull it up and show it. Or Jonica, can you show it? And see if we can. So what we're looking at, Doug and Joe, while you're, is the last meeting, we looked at the code, Article 2, Virginia Offshore Wind Development Authority, and some suggestions we had. And so Glenn is going to give us his update. And I'm sorry if you don't have that in front of you. I think that was attached to Jonica's email, or was it not? That was just the annual report. Okay. Okay, she's going to pull it up and show it at least. Okay. Sorry about that. Make it bigger, obviously. We're all older than you. Awesome. Joe and Doug, can you see that well enough on your screen? Okay, beautiful. All right,
Okay.
thank you. Go
So
ahead.
if we want to start at the top, we'll kind of work down. So the first thing, great suggestion to add associated supply chains. Obviously, one of the most important things about offshore wind is the supply chain. So really like adding that in there. You mentioned indirect offshore wind project elements. Indirect is so broad. I would just say that it gets absorbed in the indirect supply chain piece. So I think adding the associated supply chains kind of comes into play and makes sense to put that in there. The next one was changing the type of organization from a political subdivision to a policy board. This by design and definition is a political subdivision, but you do have the ability to talk about policy and make policy recommendations. So a suggestion would be keep it where it is, understanding that you already have the purview to be able to talk about policy and make policy recommendations. Your third was, so right now you are somewhat limited to collecting relevant meta ocean and environmental data. You suggested putting in data such as, which makes complete sense because there's so much more data out there than just those two.
Okay.
This would broaden you up a little bit to look at other data outside of those two areas. So that makes sense to put those two in there. Positive. I think this is the membership one where you've got someone from NASA, and you've
Yes.
also got someone from the Navy. It makes sense. I know the NASA person's never come. happy to take them off. We have to keep the Navy. Obviously, we can talk about BRAC and everything. Well, I think you talked about earlier, you know, in floating, you have to get the Navy person on here. So we can eliminate one, but we have to keep the other one with the Navy on there. The other item you had was the division shall report quarterly on updates with use of state funds, etc. There's no reason to put this in here. You can ask us to do it anytime. You can, you know, at any meeting, you can off the cuff say, next meeting, can you please report on? We would look at this more limiting. If you actually put this in there, we'd only be reporting once a quarter, as opposed to when it's timely for you to ask it. If you want to have it once a quarter, just ask it to once a quarter. If you want to have a impromptu one in a month, just ask us to do it. So right now you've got broader ability than limited yourself down there.
Okay.
Same thing with the meetings. Right now, you basically can call a meeting on the call of the chairman or the majority of this board. It gives you a lot more flexibility. If you limit it just to quarterly, you're limited just to quarterly or the majority. It makes sense, especially if something were to happen at the federal level. You may want to call, the chairman may want to call a meeting. So I would suggest just leaving that where it is. It gives you all the flexibility that you've got today.
I think there it was making sure we actually had quarterly, that at least it was quarterly, that they actually, you know, I don't think it was to limit to only 4 times a year, but actually make sure it happens 4 times
And
a
really,
year.
that would be, I mean, the chairperson should make sure that
I
happens.
agree.
So it would
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Okay.
The next one, the deputy director is, so we can already have a deputy director. It's at the discretion of the director of the Department of Energy. So if we grow and we need one, I can put one in place. But we'd rather not have it in code that we have to have one. Who knows what happens, if it's necessary, when it's necessary, for how long it's necessary. We actually had one a while back, which interestingly enough, they were not located in Hampton Roads. They worked out of Richmond. So if we do go down the road and things kind of, you know, expand, may make sense to have someone out of here,
Mhm.
but we can always, you know, cross that bridge when we get to it. The Division of Offshore Wind shall serve as staff to the, that's already defined in code. So we don't have to worry about that. It basically where it says authority, and you were going to change it to as Division of Offshore Wind, but the division is defined. You defined it up above, so you don't have to define division twice anymore, since you've defined division in the first area to refers to the Division of Offshore Wind, set forth in code, whatever. So you already covered there. Next,
So I'm just going to make sure everybody knows where we are. We're on section B. And so your suggestion, the division shall serve as staff to the authority. It doesn't need to be Division of Offshore Wind
Nope.
because there isn't currently in place one right now, even though it's actually.
well, no, so we actually in the beginning on page 1,
Uh-huh.
it actually defines division, so you're
Yes.
covered.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
So in 45-2-18, the storage sort of funds. Okay, that makes sense. This you just wanted to strike all this. It's kind of old, outdated. No issues there. We can strike all of that. This is the big one. This is 45-2-18-11. Well, will be 18-11
For operation.
under public-private partnerships.
Okay.
So first off, striking C through E is completely fine. If you change B, where you've got it, where the authority may establish a public-private partnership for the support of offshore wind, you have to keep 1, 2, and 3. Because 1, 2, and 3 is what we have to do with regards to the public-private partnership. So either if you strike 1, 2, and 3, you now have to strike B, in which case you strike the whole section.
Okay.
Or you keep B, but you have to keep 1, 2, 3 underneath of it. But C through E, you're completely fine striking.
Is there any reason not just to leave it as is?
So in the first sentence, it's stuck, it's with developers, and it really doesn't have to be with just developers. It could be with some other support entity, not just the developer.
So some other third party?
Right.
Party and the developer shall share the cost of the upgrade. Yeah, because it could be an off taker. So if you want to
But-
redefine, so that would be that's B1, correct?
So you've got A, which is specifically a PPP with a developer. B is just not specific with a developer, even though 1, 2, and 3 mention developer, developer, developer. So it's just a PPP for the support of offshore wind that with another third party, because outside of the developer.
Well, you'd have to have a developer involved, though, right? I mean, they'd have to be a party to it. It could be a 3-entity PPA or PPP, but because you have an off taker in there, but you still have to have the developer.
So 1, 2, and 3 would still, I see keeping them, but they would still have to be rewarded because of the language in B that's requested to be struck has to do with very specific things. And we're trying to look to generalize it. So just for the support of offshore wind, not so specific as that it's meta-ocean equipment or light detection.
So from
it's a
that
general.
installation to data collection platform for the support of offshore wind, just strike all of those and make it a generic public-private partnership for the support of offshore wind?
Because I mean, one is share the cost of the upgrade. There's, there's no implication that.
How do we
that is
share
an
the
upgrade.
cost if we have no budget?
That's another good point. Yeah, I mean, the whole definition of a public-private partnership is kind of usually a cost share, but there's no budget.
Right, but there could be a budget.
Yes, and I think that was what when this was written was if it happened to occur, you'd have that. So yeah, I think it's put in there for the future in case something did happen where there would be a state PPP involved.
I think we're still in favor of striking the details of a PPP.
In B?
Right.
Yeah.
And just in general, supporting a partnership for the support of offshore wind. And then we can generalize 1, 2, and 3, and then strike C and D completely.
Yep.
So we'll generalize 1, 2, and 3, but keep them.
That makes sense. I mean, you can change developer to other partnership, other parties,
Partner,
other partners,
yeah.
other partner, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just merge A and B? Is that you're trying to draw a distinction between developers and others?
No. So A is very specific, and for educational facilities and infrastructure.
I see.
And B, we're looking to make more generalized.
But under A, is it only developers that would play in that?
As currently stated. A is just talks about establish public-private partnerships with developers. And then B seems to allude to it being for others.
That was the intent of our change, was to generalize it to allow other type of PPPs with third parties.
How about if it's just for the support of offshore wind, such as the installation of? Right after partnership for support entities or support, pick your words. And then we can,
I mean,
Leave it as.
I think I like where it says that changing to the authority may establish a public-private partnership for the support of offshore wind. I mean, it could be for educational purposes, right? It's so broad
yeah,
that that's why I like where this is going, because it gives you a lot more ability to have a
Yeah.
public-private as opposed to putting a monopile on the ground.
okay. So would your suggestion then be to leave it just partnership for support of offshore wind
Yeah.
and strike all of the others, or do a such as?
Yeah.
Or just take it out so you
Period
don't
there.
limit
Yep,
it?
yep.
Yeah.
Period
Just
after that.
Leave that.
Okay.
Then we're just
And
looking
strike
at
it
1,
all.
2, and 3
Yeah.
to fit in with the new wording for B to make it more broader and generalized. So the authority and the third party shall share the cost of any partnership.
And I think
But
two can,
what? Why does that have to be in there?
Well, so usually so on one, it would be in there because you're sharing the costs. Usually, so typically in a PPP, you're sharing the cost of an upgrade. There may not be an upgrade, but it could be a shared cost of education or whatever the case is. So if there's the thought of a public-private is the public sector's getting some of the benefits, so they have to participate in the cost share. It's just not going to be the state by itself putting it up. So it mandates a cost share. The other ones, and I do agree, you want to make them a little more general, but also because the data has to come back to the state. If we're going to be putting up money, we want to make sure that we get the data on the success of these things. So
Okay.
I think I like your idea of wherever it says developer, it gets changed to other parties to the agreement or something like that. Or it could say the developer or other parties to the agreement, if you want to clarify it.
Then for each one, we just want to make, remove any type of detail, like the measurement towers, blah, 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 into something more generalized. And then the last one, keep. But change developer into other entity, developer or other entity.
so in 1, 2, and 3, under B, anywhere it says developer, it will be now say developer or other entity, or just or supporting entity.
And maybe it's an and because
And I think it's an and.
It's an and because you can have a developer plus one and the developer still has to give you the data. So
Yeah. Okay. I feel very confident in the staff coming back with this all be done, especially since with Glint, their helm.
yeah,
there.
and legislative services will get it all cleaned.
Exactly.
Yeah, once we figure out what's
Okay.
intended, legislative services will.
I want to confirm though that we just are good with, do we all agree that we should strike C, D, and E after that? Or do we think it is better to leave it in there and update the language, or anyone
We
have any
already-
heartburn for?
We already kind of agreed that those C, D, and E should go.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's in agreement. For some nods from my colleagues. Okay,
And
excellent.
honestly,
Okay.
if you make B as general as you're looking to make it,
Yep.
it actually absorbs C, D, and E.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm hopeful that it does. Okay, all right, that sounds great. Okay, all right. Mr. Davis, how about?
And then last
federal
one
loan?
is, you were looking to put in the authority to make recommendations to apply for certain grants and write letters. You can already do that today.
Yeah.
So you don't have to put that in there.
Awesome. I did not expect us to get through that today, but Will, you've got some thoughts?
Fix the shall reimburse travel fund.
That's gonna stay in May.
Why is that?
Because we don't, I mean, technically right now, we don't have money for it. And I've got another issue. So we found some money if someone requested out of here, but it's always a May at the discretion of the department. And we've got to make sure we've got it in the budgets. It's a protection scenario on the finance
Is that
side.
consistent though with the other energy authorities?
Yes.
Because I think we had that discussion as like folks who are more familiar with being on several other state boards where they are getting their travel. And so some of our folks that do not live in Hampton Roads, it creates an issue. Statute says we have to meet in person, X amount. Have to do that. And whenever we've asked questions about being reimbursed, nobody knows.
Oh, no, oh, that's welcome. It's a May in there. It should be it's at least in all of ours. Whether there's other agencies, it should be in theirs because it's just a finance scenario that if we don't have the budget for it, we can't afford to do it. But no, the way it's done is you just put it's on request because some people don't take it, and then on request it's filed and then we do the reimbursement.
Well,
Joe,
I'd
do you
like
have
to
a
bring
comment?
up that when I was on the Virginia State Board of Control Board, it was understood that reasonable expenses were paid I don't buy the fact that we don't have money for this. It's just something that we're volunteers. We don't get paid anything, but if I'm going to have to drive down to Richmond or Newport News, you're talking about a, rather lengthy trip. In fact, I'd have to stay overnight. And on the Water Control Board, we were reimbursed for all this. I don't understand why is this authority treated differently than other.
How about, Director Davis, can you look into what other authorities get and come back with us? I think we could talk about this for a while. I think you pick up that we're all in agreement that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, it will, being understood that it's covered doesn't mean it's necessarily a shell, but this will stay in May, just because that protection has to be in there. But I mean, we're very happy to cover it. Now, mileage is one thing, hotels, something entirely different.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I mean, yeah, we are not funded like some agency or some boards and commissions. It just, we're not. But yeah, Ken, if you, Jonica, can just check to see what others have in theirs. But yeah, we can definitely cover mileage. That's not an issue.
I don't
Joe,
understand why you can't cover reasonable expenses, which would be a hotel if you have to stay overnight.
If we, and the way we should run agency or board or commission, we cover the others. If we had to cover everyone's hotel room, it would be a significant cost.
Well, it's not everyone's. It's the people that have to travel to that. The governor appointed me to this authority and just like Doug, to provide input and to do things, and then to say basically, hey, that's really nice. We're not going to pay you anything. They'll reimburse you for anything that's reasonable expenses. And
I think
yes, let's check and see with others, but I can guarantee you, for example, the Water Control Board did that all the time for reasonable expenses.
And the only comment I was going to make is because I know some of us, when this is also kind of, we're not seeking reimbursement, we're not putting in stuff like that, but I think it would be good for it to be available, like I said, in May, if the folks who are requesting it can make those submissions for reimbursement.
The only thing would be, we'd have to figure out where do we draw the line, right?
Sure.
I mean, is it, 6-hour drive? Didn't we cover hotels, or is it, a 2-hour drive, in which case problematic, right? So.
Sure. So I can say as chair, the next meeting, I'm planning for it to be in Richmond. So we can get it more central, getting everybody there. And I mean, as far as this goes, there could be a manufacturing company that is in Southwest Virginia that would like to participate, that's going to benefit from components to be manufactured in offshore wind. And that's definitely going to be more of even a 6-hour drive to Richmond. So why don't you guys hold that clay, warm it up, and figure out what you can come back with us to. And then this will be perfect because we'll have had the elections. We'll look and see what these are. I think getting the, respectfully, the Wallops Island off of there is great, because then we can fill that vacancy, which has been sitting empty because they have not provided us a name, and so it's sitting a vacancy. And I will also say is all of us voluntarily chose to put our name in for this. So with that comes some understanding of what costs might be attributed to it as well. Okay.
Typically a mileage thing.
Yeah, mileage, yeah.
And the staff already has it printed out what your mileage is from your house to where the meeting is going to be that day. You sign it. It's already filled out for you. You sign it, you turn it in. They've already figured out the mileage for you. You don't have to do any math.
93 miles to Richmond.
Super,
I know that from right here.
That's the way we did it on BVS.
Okay. All right. So I think that kind of hit our administrative type of items. Are there
one more thing on
Oh,
that?
sure. Sorry,
So
Kathleen.
as far as who's going to carry and sponsor it. So,
Let's get through the election to figure that out.
but not everyone is up for election. So our Senate
Senate,
isn't.
sure.
So if we want to pick a senator now, so they can start looking at it and looking at the wording themselves to say, I'm not happy with this, I'm happy with this. It might be wise just to pick someone in the Senate side
Mhm.
so that it's ironed out. So when we get the sponsor on the House side, it's kind of all ironed out.
I have no trouble looking for that. I have a couple in mind. I don't know if at a meeting on the record, I want to shout out their names voluntarily, because that
No,
would
but
be
I
a
think
wrong
we
thing to
should
do.
wait till after the election, though.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we,
Changes things.
yeah,
Yeah,
There may be better patrons.
who
care for
majorities,
this.
non-majorities.
Yes.
Better
and a
vehicles.
variety of things. So because we're
Committees.
with the goal of having the meeting in November after the election before Thanksgiving, we'll still have time to identify. I already have a couple people in mind. We've talked about them. So that should be doable, I think. But you're not wrong. We want to pinpoint them now as outcomes and where we go right as soon as we have it. But getting it back from the staff and the team will be great to have it already ready to go. All right. Any other comments from board members? And then I'm going to do public comments. Okay. Have no reports from the Peanut Gallery? No.
Before we do public comments and then.
Yeah, November for sure. And I'm suggesting the election is on the 4th. So I would suggest either I don't know if Wednesdays are great for everybody or if middle of the week is good, but I'm thinking, the week of the 10th or the week of the 17th for sure. Haven't stuck to a specific day that I recall. Have we?
12th is open. Not the 19th.
Okay, so you,
11th?
Well, you said the week of the 11th.
And
the
this
week
is
of the
in
10th and the week
Richmond?
of the 17th.
Richmond?
Yes, it'll be in Richmond.
Thank you.
Veterans Day would be the 10th anyway, or the 11th. Yeah, so not the 11th because that's Veterans Day. How about the 18th?
What was wrong with the 12th?
The vice chair can't be there. And since we're going to meet in Richmond. Or was it?
I mean, that actually, I could.
That's fine. 1 to 3 worked fine for today. So
12th?
the 12th, then I think we're, yeah.
Does anybody have a problem with the afternoon of the 12th in Richmond?
Doug looks good. Doug is okay. And Joe has stepped away, so we don't have that confirmation. Ms. Owens, how does your calendar look?
I have something, but this would take priority.
Oh, this would, okay.
Yeah, if I'm not on
Excellent.
travel, yeah.
And Eileen, assuming that we get reappointed, you available? Okay, and Brian left, so he has no choice. So there you go. All right, so we're going to go with November the 12th from 1 to 3 and with the location to be identified, but it will be in Richmond, the Richmond area.
We staff support finding that location.
We've done the library before. I can't remember what it
Memorial
was.
is a really awesome
Conference
venue
room?
and they have fantastic AV
Let's
stuff.
do that. Let's see if we can do, Kathy will help you coordinate with them
Yeah.
potentially.
So did you say November 12th?
November
1 to
12th
3?
from 1 to 3.
Thank you.
We all, okay. I think it sounds like we're come to consensus there. All right, now, if it's all right, we'll move into public comment. And we'll start with the gentleman in the room. Mr. Turner, would you like to have any comment for today or questions, or do you want to hand these out? Because I had them here in case you weren't here. Would you like to share this with the group? Please do. No, I think this should be good enough, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Thomas Turner. I'm the State Director for Conservatives for Clean Energy, and I also serve on the Governor's LGBTQ Advisory Board as Vice Chair and also on the Clean Energy Advisory Board.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you speak in?
Just sit and talk to the mic, please.
There we go.
I'll start
Thank you,
over.
Joe.
Sorry, my apologies. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
My name is Thomas Turner. I'm the State Director for Conservatives for Clean Energy, and I am also on the Governor's Clean Energy Advisory Board and also on the LGBTQ Advisory Board for the Governor's Vice Chair. And what I'm passing out to the committee members and I'll also email to the chair. My organization, I'm a part of a 26-state network called Conservatives for Clean Energy. And we did a study on the environmental and economic benefits of connection between offshore oil and gas and offshore wind energy. And basically talking kind of the study in a couple of points shows that it actually helps a thriving marine ecosystem and also risks minimal risk of marine animals. So kind of offsetting some of the false narrative that we've heard. about offshore wind killing whales, so on and so forth. And I'll send a link to the chair and as well. But I've really enjoyed the discussion. I have one more copy left, and I have a half copy. But if anyone would like more information about Conservatives for Clean Energy in Virginia or our national organization, I'll be glad to share that offline and meet with anyone at the
Thank
chair's
you.
discretion.
Mr. Turner, appreciate that very much. And again, he coordinated the meeting we had last week with
Thank you, Madam
Congresswoman
Chair.
Higgins, and it was fantastic. So appreciate having your support and you participating in the meeting. Jonica, is there anyone online that's participating that would like to make a public comment? This is a perfect time. Raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment and we'll unmute or call on you. Okay, having seen none, is there a motion to adjourn? First, is there a second? Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up from Joe and Doug to adjourn. Okay, record as unanimous. Thank you all so much and see you on November the 12th. Thank you.